This week, we are joined by an amazing arts advocate, James Panozzo. James Panozzo is the executive director of Launch LA. But before we get into that, let me tell you a little bit about James. He was raised in Cleveland, Ohio, attended Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. He considers Los Angeles home. Some of his most formative experiences come from living abroad in Eastern Europe and in New York, as well as traveling to different parts of the world. He co-founded TarFEST, a free music and arts festival held annually in the Miracle Mile district. During the time that he's been working in the arts, he's headed fundraising efforts. He has seen the production of not just TarFest, but different various arts events. He's collaborated with many curators, museums, and partners to create programming that people can relate to and feel inspired by. In addition to all of this amazing work that he does with partners and the community, James, as I said earlier, is the executive director of Launch LA. And we're going to learn a little bit about Launch LA and James. So with a great heart-warmed welcome, James.
Thank you, Cindy.
It's so great to have you here. Obviously, we want to talk about Launch LA today, but can you, in your own words, tell us a little bit more about yourself in addition to what I shared?
Here are some of the things I had in my short bio. I am married. I have a wonderful wife who's also an arts professional, and that makes for just like a nice home experience and a nice understanding partner. We share a lot of information and ideas and kind of trials and tribulations with each other. It's a good support mechanism. She has a son who's an adult son who I raised a little bit along with her. He's doing very well living in Los Angeles, and her and I together have a beautiful 14-year-old daughter, and she just started high school. She takes up a lot of our time and allows us, some distraction, some welcome distraction and other things in our life away from the art world. But, being in the art world, it is thankfully or unthankfully a full-time job. It's something that you kind of are always engaged in, and especially in a wonderful city like Los Angeles with such a vibrant arts community.
Indeed. And having the support of a family that loves the arts as much as you
Yeah,
do makes such a big difference because, I think everybody in one way or another appreciates the arts, loves being involved with some sort of artistic project. But there's that other side of the arts, which is the production of said
sure.
art. And that is different than going in as a patron to experience art.
Yeah.
When you're producing some type of event like TarFest or the various different exhibits that you do at Launch LA, of course you engage with the art, of course you fall in love with it, but there's also the production side, and you can call it both glamorous and unglamorous. It's
Sure.
glamorous because you get to meet amazing artists and amazing people, but then you also have to do the work of producing and so forth, and yet there's a certain fulfillment that comes with it
Yeah.
that just makes you say, yes, we did it. And having a family that understands all angles of the art world, the production end of it, as well as the end product of the event, that's just golden and beautiful that you
Yeah.
have that as part of your life.
And it's a very collaborative industry. So you want to work with people and organizations and artists, that understand the more you do together, the more that you work collaboratively, the better the outcome can be. And I've been blessed over the years to, work with some great people and meet some great people. You included, Cindy. You've been a big part of my trajectory and of Launch's success over the years. And it's just, you never know when these opportunities are going to arise, and what they're actually going to yield. But, when they do produce great results for the organization and wonderful experiences for the artists, and then wonderful experiences for the collaborator. It's just such a win-win-win situation. And that's really the beauty and the joy that comes from working in the arts. There's really not just one person that is really in charge of everything and really takes all responsibility.
Yeah, perfectly and beautifully said. And likewise, I've also felt very honored and blessed to have met you. And for our audience members that don't know, I've known James, I want to say since 2017 or 2018, more or
Yeah.
less. We met at the LA Art Show. I was visiting, scoping out the art show, looking for artists, looking for something or someone to bring to the art center that I used to direct. And as I was walking through the different kiosks at the LA Art Show, I came across a certain kiosk slash exhibit, and I had to just step back for a moment and just take in the art that I was seeing. And I saw some amazing artists being exhibited, and by default, amazing art. And they were all different, but I saw how they intertwined in the conversations that were being teased out in said artwork. And it was at that moment where I said, I wonder about these artists, and I wonder who curated it. And I saw you sitting down, and I introduced myself. And next thing I know, we collaborated a couple of times on several exhibitions with several artists. And it was really a true joy, because it goes back to what you mentioned earlier, James, this idea of it's not one singular person, but it's really a collaborative effort. And the best part is that when you collaborate with people who are putting their heart and their soul into said collaboration and are doing it without ego, they're doing it just because they really care and are passionate, it leads to some really magical events.
Yeah.
And I do really, in my heart, believe that what we collaborated with was truly magical. We had really good turnout. We
Yeah.
had a really, really good turnout at the events. And with that being said, that would never have been possible if you had not founded Launch LA. So I am very grateful that you founded Launch LA, and that you have a scope of artists that you work with. Can you tell our audience a little bit about how and why you decided to launch LA?
My introduction into the art world was originally through my production of the free multidisciplinary festival that you spoke about called TarFEST. And I started that in 2003 here in the neighborhood. I'm coming to you from the Miracle Mile district of Los Angeles, where I've lived and, well, not lived, but worked most of my adult life here in Los Angeles. And I had just moved back from New York City, where I was very inspired by all the creativity and just energy and excitement around the art world and around just all the creative industries there, and just the creative energy that is New York City. And I wanted to kind of, you know, do my do my part to mirror that or mimic that here in Los Angeles. And our office is right across the street from the La Brea Tar Pits Park, which at that time in 2003 wasn't the most utilized green space. It's a beautiful public park that's open, but it has a wall around it. So people may not really understand that it's free or open to the public. And
Mm-hmm.
there wasn't a lot of action going on Wilshire Boulevard either. There was a lot of undeveloped space here on the Miracle Mile. 2003. Now there's so much construction and so much happening and so much energy on Wilshire Boulevard, as we have the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures. LACMA's doing a huge renovation and reconstruction, the Peterson Museum, the Craft Contemporary Museum, and a lot of these vacant city blocks that were here in 2003 are now filled with beautiful mixed use high rises, and there's a lot more vibrancy in the neighborhood. But when I started it was a green space. I was inspired by the arts. I had friends here that were artists and musicians, and I just want to create an opportunity, a festival that we could bring people together, and use art as kind of the through line. So we organized an exhibition, we organized, a free concert with several bands, and then had different activities for kids to explore creativity, and worked with some of the local museums, some of the local nonprofits. And, there really wasn't anything like it in the neighborhood. And there were other festivals in the city, which I was inspired by. But, those come and go. They have come and gone, unfortunately. But, we've been lucky enough to stay around for 20 years. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary last June.
Congratulations.
Thank you for the festival, and made it through some economic downturns and through the pandemic. I have a great board chairman who's been with me from the beginning, Stephen Kramer, and that's whose office that I'm in. He's an attorney and a great citizen, a great ambassador for this neighborhood and supporter. And, he just, you know, allowed me to introduce, I was able to meet my city councilman and some of the city agencies and the local businesses and institutions. He runs the Miracle Mile Chamber of Commerce, so he has his own way of networking and doing good for the neighborhood. And I worked with him on that organization, which is still around today and still a very important part of TarFest and how we get it done, how we raise money and how we do the things we do. So that was my first foray, and from there, he and I actually opened a commercial gallery space shortly thereafter, which we ran for about 8 years. 7 years maybe. That was from 2003 to 2010. So that's when we got into the actual exhibiting artists and showing artists, meeting artists, learning how that industry works. And that was 2003, 2004. And LA had a great art scene for sure, but it wasn't nearly what it is today. It's clearly established itself as an art capital of the world. And there are so many, galleries from Europe, galleries from New York are all here. New York was
As well as from Asia.
Absolutely. Asia, South America, Central
Mm-hmm.
America, you know, because of our unique position geographically, we really
Yes.
face Asia. We also look south, more to South America, Central America. And, those are the immigrants that we have here. While New York is very European centric, or was, for all of its time, kind of running the show. And as LA faces Asia and faces South, we truly are a melting pot of artists and citizens that makes for just a really vibrant place to see art and meet people and exchange ideas.
Yes. And if
Yeah.
I may interject, James, for the people who are not familiar with the landscape of Los Angeles, so as many of you do know, Los Angeles is big, it's broad. This particular area, Miracle Mile, that James is referring to is mid-city. And what is so great about this area is that it's a true confluence, a true convergence of different people of diverse backgrounds. And that's part of the magic of this area. You have the business end of it where there's a lot of sky rises, as you've mentioned, but there's also all of the museums and galleries. In addition to that, if you just move beyond that Miracle Mile, Wilshire area, north of it and south of it, there's also residential areas.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
those residential areas have people from diverse backgrounds. And I think that's part of the magic of being in that Miracle Mile. You have diverse businesses as well as a diverse set of people that live in the area. And that brings to so much richness and the opportunity to meet people with different ideas. So I thought I'd interject a little bit and
Thank you.
share
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
sometimes people think of Los Angeles and they just think it's one big, never ending city. But we do have small areas that concentrate on different things, if you will.
Yeah. Little neighborhoods, right, that have their own ideas. Just to the north of us, as you said, is Hollywood.
Right.
Just to the west is Beverly Hills. We border Beverly Hills, not far away. Just to the east is Koreatown, the starting of Koreatown in that mid Wilshire area, which has a very urban feel. And then the south would be, the beginning of South Central and a lot of a lot of diverse communities down there.
So you're
So
really in a
really in the
very
crossroads.
pivotal central location
Yeah,
where you can reach out to the landscape that is Los Angeles, because you're able to serve people from all those different backgrounds because you're so
absolutely.
centrally located, and it's also an area known for the arts. I
Yeah.
thought it would be helpful for our audience to understand that. But without digressing, and I really appreciate the background you gave with TarFest. Can you tell us how TarFest led you to launch LA?
You know, it was in 2009, we had that economic downturn.
Yes.
The first big one that kind of hit us. There was just a lot of insecurity in town, and a lot of retail spaces were closing and small businesses. It was just a readjustment time in the economy that happens every 10 years or so. And so unfortunately, we did have to close our commercial gallery at that time. And but we had a different nonprofit organization running TarFest. TarFest has always been run by a nonprofit, a 501c3. So I decided, using my experience in the commercial art gallery world and my experience in TarFest, just to create a new nonprofit that could run TarFest. At that point, I'd had a nice 8 years of experience running TarFest, and I wanted to continue to do the work for artists in the gallery setting, and but use a nonprofit model. Be a more open model. Open to all artists, and not really having a stable of artists, which the commercial, people who don't really understand how the commercial gallery system works, you tend to have a stable of artists that really you work with, and you try to promote their careers and build them, and hopefully they grow over time. With the nonprofit space, I really try to give opportunity to as many artists as I can from diverse backgrounds. And there's not as much pressure, so to speak, to make sales and to succeed on that commercial level. I have a much lower overhead. I'm able to apply for some grants, and ask for donations and just run things differently. I don't need as much space because I don't have to store all the artists' work. It allows me to kind of introduce artists, younger artists, to the how a gallery works and what it's like having a show. But I also, because LA has such a rich background, or such a rich trove of artists, that there are always artists looking for opportunities. Like my gallery closed, galleries are closing all the time. And then all of a sudden you have 20 displaced artists looking for a new gallery, but a new gallery often comes to town and they're looking for new art. So things are not always in flux, but there's certainly a transition going on all the time. Through my work over the years, I've got to know a lot of artists and a lot of curators. So I do come up with ideas. I do come up with ideas for shows. I'm approached by artists. I'm approached by curators, and we try to come up with ideas, to put forth, a really interesting presentation, and a nice way to introduce or to just kind of bolster certain artists' careers, whatever that would be. So I may have gotten a little off track. Sorry, Cindy, but so that's essentially what happened. So during those early days of starting Launch LA, that was around 2010. Like I said, there was plenty of available retail space. So I was just doing pop-up galleries. I didn't have to commit to a permanent space, because I would just go to the retail or some of these vacant small businesses that had open storefronts, and I would go to the building owners and ask if I could have an exhibition in there for a week or for a month, and just activate the space and just give the vacant space a little life, as well as give an artist opportunity. So being in this neighborhood that already has kind of a focus on the arts, it worked out very well. And so I had a couple shows, went to a few other, went to Koreatown a little bit downtown, had some shows there. And eventually I did find a permanent space. That wasn't until, I believe, 2015 when we found our space. So it was a good 4 years where it's just doing kind of pop-up mobile spaces and collaborating with other nonprofit organizations and artist groups, and just doing as much as I could, while also producing TarFest, which only happens once a year, but it does take quite a bit of time just to fundraise and produce. And get all your permitting in line and everything else. So it
Wow.
kept me busy, and I was able, like I said, to move into the permanent space in 2015, and it's
And
gone
it's a
really well ever since.
great space. It's a
Thank
great
you. Yeah,
space. I'm going to interject again. Apologies. One of the things that I have certainly appreciated about you, James, and I'd like to share with our audience is I'm going to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, is that you wanted to give artists an opportunity. So you started off LAUNCHLA as a pop-up gallery, and eventually you found a permanent space, and now you have exhibits on a regular basis. You have artists rotating in and out of your space. But I think the heart of the matter is your why, your reasoning, which is to help people, to give people a voice, new artists, emerging artists, even established artists, because
sure,
you also exhibit established artists. And it's with this idea of giving them a voice without some of, I don't know if red tape is the right word, but without some of the contingencies that come with being represented by a for-profit gallery.
yeah,
So in the nonprofit world, you're really able to give people a voice. And I've seen you do that. You do that with different artists of different backgrounds, different nationalities, different religions, different races, everything. And that's one of the things that drew me to want to continue to work with you, was this idea that you really do have a diverse set of artists, not because you're trying to fit into some cliche or to be politically correct. You've been doing it long before it became something that's become part of our larger conversations, which
sure.
I'm not taking away from that. I think it's great that
No,
we are now in a place where we're trying to be more inclusive, to be more equity minded, more accessibility minded. But what I
sure.
am saying is that you started to do this before it became the in thing to do, or before it became something that culturally people wanted to see more of. I think there's people have always wanted to see diversity, but I think people started to verbalize it more in the
Sure.
recent years. You were having a space for people to be seen before it was voiced as vociferously as it's being voiced now.
Sure. It almost became a mandate, like a lot of these things, and rightfully so, I mean, all the kind of the social awakening that happened. I mean, it happened internationally, but then it happened in the United States kind of during COVID and all that time, and a lot of the social unrest. But it had been bubbling kind of under the surface for a long time. And, just things came together at a time when, because we are a nonprofit, we do have a responsibility. We use public funding sometimes, and we are a fully transparent organization. So we have an obligation to try to, show the diverse nature of the city and provide opportunities to everyone. And that's one of the beautiful things about Los Angeles. If you live in Los Angeles, especially my area, but any area of Los Angeles, there's pretty nice diversity. You can find neighborhoods that are a little more isolated, but overall in the city of Los Angeles, diversity is something that if you're here in Los Angeles, you want to be exposed to that. You appreciate that. You're aware of that. So it was really me just trying to be a kind of a mirror to the city itself, to our society, to what we have to offer. And the best things come from diversity, different ways of thinking, different ways of seeing,
Right.
different ways to tell a story, different ways to tell a personal history.
But I do
Uh,
think there's something to be said for having that vision and having that open heart to say, this is what I'm going to do because I choose to, because it feels right, not because it's a mandate.
yeah,
And as I
yeah.
said, you started to do this, the conversations that we're having now.
Thank you.
And that's something that I appreciate, because the premise of this podcast is human centric leadership, meaning putting the human at the center, putting the heart at the center, putting people at the center. And if we're going to put the human or people at the center, that means all humans.
Absolutely.
So when there's a place that provides a platform for putting all humans in terms of creativity at the center, it's beautiful. And I think that there's much to be said for that in terms of what you do with your work, and that you truly do reflect the values of the nonprofit that you created. You said, we are a nonprofit, we have a responsibility, but you're the person who set the guidelines of what said responsibility was when you created Launch LA.
Thank you.
Well,
Yeah, it
it's
was
true. It's
yeah,
true.
thank you. I guess it is at this point. After 20 years, I'm just really grateful to still have a voice and still have an opportunity to work with artists and work with the community and have a place, have a place that offers exhibitions and have a place that, creates TarFest and is really just TarFest is really a gathering. It's an opportunity for people to get together on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon and celebrate each other and celebrate creativity and celebrate our neighborhood and get to know just get to know one another and you know
And
have some
feel that you're
food.
part of a community.
Yeah, yeah. In a big city, it it's not all. It doesn't always feel community as a tight community as it could or should. But there is people. Everybody wants that. All humans like to know that who their neighbors are, that everybody's okay, that
That we
that
belong.
yeah, that we belong to something, that we have similar ideals and similar kind of aspirations, safety and fun and inspiration, all these great things that
And joy, right? That's
joy. Yeah,
something that TarFest is a very joyous event with all of the
absolutely.
music, the crafts,
Yeah,
the families that come together because it is a family-friendly event.
sure,
So there's
sure.
there's joy
All
and
ages,
community.
right? All ages.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
and the gallery experience is that kind of in a microcosm, right? It's an artist or two or three presenting their work and having people come in and feel that work and listen to the artist or get to know the artist or not, or just just appreciate the artwork itself and you know be inspired by that, or just take a read on the art, let it penetrate, um
Right.
or not, but it's that to me is the joy and the power of art, music and visual art, how it brings us together and how we find commonality among it, between it, and just joy. Yeah, back to joy. A good song. Everybody loves being at a concert and tapping their feet and enjoying music, or being in a nice gallery with beautiful art on the wall, and just having the overall overall sense of the space. The vibe, so to
Yes.
speak.
Yes. And
Really wonderful.
I do think that that's part of what creates community, having a space to go to.
Yeah,
Especially, let's say if you're a new artist, new to town,
yeah,
you heard about Launch LA, you said, okay, I'm going to go to this space. It's there. And not only is it there, you have exhibits on a regular basis. Can you tell our audience about how often you have a new exhibit?
yeah. Right now we're like every 4 weeks has been the current exhibition. I'm working with a outside curator that I've worked with before. She prefers longer exhibitions to really she really wants to try to reach as much audience as she can, as many people as she can. So she really lobbied to have a 7 week exhibition, which a lot of artists think is a great opportunity because we're all so busy. We all have every intention. Oh, I really want to go to that
Mm-hmm.
show. I want to go to that movie. And before we know it, it's been 3 weeks and it's already canceled or it's already over. So that is a good strategy. But actually, as I look toward 2024 and scheduling some shows, I think I may be going to a 3 to 4 week model, and just so I can give the opportunity to more artists,
Right. Because it's again based on this nonprofit model versus the for-profit
Sure.
traditional gallery space that's really
Right.
pushing their artists versus you having a rotating open door policy where you're like, okay, let me introduce you to person
Yeah.
X, let me
Yeah.
introduce you to
Yeah.
person, Y and Z. There's different models. There's something to be said about whether you have a short-term exhibition model or a long-term exhibition models. There's pros, there's cons, but at
Yep.
the end of the day, what matters is that you do have a model in place, you have a structure in place, and said structure allows people to know that usually on a monthly basis, you can come to opening night
Yep.
and you can find some sort of exhibition with new and interesting artists. James, where could people go to find out more information about Launch LA and upcoming exhibitions?
Probably the best place is our website, which is launchla.org. And we do have a pretty active Instagram site as well. That's Launch LA. And TarFest has its own Instagram page and it is part of the Launch LA website. But if you were to Google TarFest, you would
Mhm.
be led to its own web page on that Launch LA website. So, the internet is, that's something that I've kind of grown up with. When I started in the early 2000s, the internet was kind of just getting traction in the late 90s and whatnot. So, you know, I've been lucky enough to understand the importance of a website and what that can do, and the free marketing you can get. We have Facebook pages as well. The power of Google. If you were to Google Launch LA or Launch or TarFest, there should be some good information out there. Our location and our phone number and websites, all that good stuff. So
Nice,
pretty transparent.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And so I'm just really happy that, you were able to share that there's a place where people can go for more information. And for those of you that are watching the YouTube version versus listening it to audio, James, thank you so much for everything that you've shared with us. But I would like to ask you one or two more questions.
Sure.
When it comes to the work that you do as an executive director of a nonprofit organization, what has brought you the most joy?
I mean, for me, it really is, just meeting the artists and working with the artists and anyone that's been a good collaborator. I'm pretty much a one-man band. I have a wonderful grant writer, and I have somebody that does help me with my social media and the website. And but just because of the nature of the organization and what needs to be done, I make a lot of the decisions. I do have a board of directors that I refer to, but it's really, when you work with an artist that's passionate and caring and understands how difficult the whole art world is or can be, that we're just trying, a collaborator. It's just really refreshing. And then other, arts professionals like you, when I met you, or when I worked with Mar Hollingsworth from the California African American Museum, or somebody that works for the city, the Department of Cultural Affairs, or you know some of the grant makers that are out there that have funded us over the years. They're people of the same tribe. That's all I can say. That they understand why we do it. They understand the importance of art, the importance of bringing people together for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And it's uplifting for all. It gives me the energy and the juice to carry on. But you know, and hopefully they're appreciative, and they usually are, thankfully, that I'm able to do something for them. They're able to do something for me. They're introducing some of their audience to Launch and the whole catalog of artists that I've been able to work with. Every show builds on the last or builds on the next. It's really a nice network that's been kind of created, and that brings me a lot of joy. You know, I just want people to have a good experience and take something with them that, just can get them to a new place, a better place.
Yeah.
I'm not the end all. I try to instill in artists that, it's a career, it takes a while sometimes to gain that traction. Artists choose art career for a lot of different things. They want to be famous, they want to be stars, they want to have their art in museums, but it really, there's just so many levels of gratification and satisfaction you can get from the art world, that I just want to try to be a little positive injection, positive influence on them in their career. And they in turn are that on me. I feel their appreciation, and I feel the artwork. I respond to good art. And I do think that there are so many wonderful artists in Los Angeles that there's just no shortage of quality work and serious voices out there telling stories and telling their experiences. So
Indeed.
that's kind of what keeps me going. It's very satisfying
Nice.
that way.
It just fills my heart when I hear someone like you say, you know what? I am satisfied. I love what I do. And that does not negate challenges, because there's
Sure,
always
no, they're there
challenges in every
every day.
industry. But to be able to say, I love what I do, and I
Yeah,
feel fulfillment and joy in the people that I meet, that's really quite beautiful. And I do think it goes back to the heart of the matter of creating genuine relationships. When your end goal is to uplift others, as is yours with having Launch LA and helping give a voice, a platform to different artists, that end goal of is happening. You're uplifting others,
yeah,
but you're also meeting people and creating relationships, and it becomes a two-way street of give and take, where you give joy to one another,
yeah,
right? And you
yeah,
take a little bit of that joy with you. They take a little bit of that joy with them. And that's what makes us human. That's what creates the human experience, are these connections, these
yeah,
relationships. And you can do that in different industries. In this case, it happens to be in the art world, but it's nonetheless at the heart of the matter is being human and how we show up and we help
yeah.
each other. So I want to say thank you, James, on many levels. One, for uplifting so many people and giving them a voice, and for being you and for being here today. Thank you for joining us on PreZence. It's just
Oh,
been
thank
an
you, Cindy.
absolute joy.
Thanks for our great history together, and I'm so happy to be part of this new adventure for you, and look forward to, seeing more of your podcasts and hearing more. And I just really thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, James. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, you too.